I stood in the jewelry store in downtown Portland, Oregon, examining a pearl necklace for my daughter Emma's wedding this Saturday. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. The text read, "Don't go to the wedding. Run." My heart pounded. I called the number immediately. A woman's panicked voice whispered, "Charles, they're going to kill you at the ceremony. Your son-in-law planned everything. I'm your..." Then screaming. Glass shattering. A man's angry shout. The line went dead. I dropped the necklace. My hands shook uncontrollably. I stood frozen in that jewelry store, phone still pressed to my ear, the dial tone buzzing like angry wasps in my skull. The sales clerk, a young woman with bright red lipstick, asked if I was okay. I stammered something about needing air, left without buying anything, and rushed through the mall toward the parking garage. My legs felt unsteady as I reached my car, a 10-year-old Honda Accord that had seen better days. I sat in the driver's seat, door still open, and tried calling that number again. Nothing. Straight to a generic voicemail, the kind you get with a brand new phone that hasn't been personalized yet. I tried 5 more times, my thumb jabbing at the screen with increasing desperation. Nothing. Each attempt went nowhere. My mind raced through what I'd heard. The woman's voice, urgent and terrified. She'd said my name, Charles. She knew who I was. She said they're going to kill you at the ceremony. Not Emma. Me. Specifically me. And then those chilling words before the line cut. I'm your. Your what? Your who? The question burned in my chest. I'm Charles Morrison, 63 years old, retired insurance investigator. I spent 35 years examining fraud cases, false claims, staged accidents. I knew how to spot a con from a mile away, or at least, I used to think I did. My wife Patricia died 3 years ago, from cancer, a slow and brutal decline that took everything from her, and nearly everything from me. Emma was all I had left. Emma, my 28-year-old daughter, beautiful and brilliant, was marrying Brandon Clark this Saturday, just 4 days away. Brandon worked as a financial advisor at West Shore Investment Group downtown. They'd been engaged 8 months. Emma met him at a charity gala 14 months ago, some benefit for children's literacy. She'd come home that night glowing, talking about this charming man who'd bid $12,000 on a weekend trip to Napa Valley just to sit next to her during dinner. I'd always felt something was off about Brandon. I couldn't pinpoint what. He was too smooth, too rehearsed, like an actor playing the role of perfect son-in-law. His laugh came at exactly the right moments. His compliments were always perfectly calibrated. When he asked for Emma's hand in marriage, sitting in my living room with a velvet box and a nervous smile, I'd wanted to say no, but Emma was so happy, so radiant. How could I break her heart over a feeling? I drove home to my house in the suburbs, a modest 3-bedroom ranch I'd lived in for 30 years. The mortgage was paid off. The yard needed mowing. Patricia's rose bushes were overgrown because I'd never had her gift for gardening. I parked in the driveway and sat there for 5 minutes, staring at the house where I'd raised Emma, where Patricia died in our bedroom with hospice nurses holding her hand. Inside, I went straight to the kitchen table and opened my laptop. I started with the basics. I searched Brandon Clark's name. His LinkedIn profile popped up first. Professional headshot, neat suit, confident smile. Bachelor's degree in finance from Oregon State University. 5 years at West Shore Investment Group. Client testimonials praising his expertise. Facebook profile showed photos of him and Emma at restaurants, hiking trails, the coast. Instagram was more of the same. Everything looked normal. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect. I searched the phone number that had texted me. I still had contacts in the industry, access to databases most people didn't know existed. The number came back as a prepaid burner phone, purchased with cash at a convenience store in Northeast Portland 3 days ago. Untraceable. I read the text message again, word by word. Don't go to the wedding. Run. All capitals. Urgent. Desperate. Then the phone call. The woman's voice. Charles, they're going to kill you at the ceremony. Your son-in-law planned everything. Your son-in-law. Not fiancé. Son-in-law. As if the marriage was already a done deal. As if Brandon was already part of the family. Already in position for whatever he was planning. I thought about my finances. I'd been careful since Patricia died. My pension from the insurance company provided $3,800 a month. Social Security added another $2,100. I had a retirement account, my savings from decades of work. Nothing extravagant. I wasn't wealthy, just comfortable, secure, or so I thought. 6 months ago, Emma had mentioned Brandon was helping her reorganize her finances. She'd suggested I might want Brandon's professional advice too. I'd declined politely. I preferred to manage my own money. Always had. Patricia used to tease me about it, called me a control freak when it came to the checkbook. A cold thread of fear wove through my chest. I logged into my bank account, something I did maybe once a month to check balances and pay bills. The page loaded slowly, my ancient laptop wheezing with effort. The number that appeared made my vision blur. My retirement account, which had held $347,000 when I last checked a month ago, now showed a balance of $8,200. $338,000. Gone. I refreshed the page, certain there was a mistake. The number didn't change. I clicked through transaction history with shaking hands. Multiple transfers over the past 3 weeks. $10,000 here. $25,000 there. $15,000. $30,000. All transferred to an account I didn't recognize. All authorized with my digital signature. All using security questions I'd supposedly answered. But I never made these transfers. I never authorized anything. Someone had been impersonating me. Someone had my passwords, my security information, my digital identity, and my life savings were gone. I grabbed my phone and called the bank's fraud department. The automated system made me navigate through 12 menu options before I finally reached a human being. I explained the situation, trying to keep my voice steady. The representative, a man named Kevin, who sounded about 25, put me on hold for 7 minutes. When he came back, his voice was professionally sympathetic, but unhelpful. Mr. Morrison, I'm looking at the transactions now. They all appear to have been made with proper authentication. Your username and password were entered correctly. Security questions were answered. The transfers were made to an account registered under your name at another institution. Our fraud team will investigate, but this process typically takes 30 to 60 days. 30 to 60 days? I nearly shouted. Someone stole my retirement savings and you need 2 months to figure it out? I understand your frustration, sir. But according to our records, these appear to be legitimate transfers made by you. If you're claiming you didn't make them, we'll need to file an identity theft report, and you'll need to contact local police. I hung up, pulse hammering in my temples. The wedding was Saturday, 4 days away. Someone had stolen my money. Someone was planning to kill me. And I had no proof, no evidence. Nothing but a mysterious text message and a terrifying phone call. My phone rang. Emma's name lit up the screen. For a moment, I considered not answering. What would I say? But I couldn't ignore my daughter. "Hi, sweetheart," I said, forcing normalcy into my voice. "Dad, hi. Did you find a gift yet? I know you're terrible at shopping." Her voice bubbled with joy, completely oblivious to the nightmare unfolding. "Still looking," I said. "How are the wedding preparations?" "Crazy busy. Veronica, our wedding planner, is amazing though. She's handling everything. Oh, and don't forget, the rehearsal dinner is Friday night at 6 at the Hilton downtown. You're still coming, right?" Veronica, the wedding planner. Another person with access to wedding details, schedules, guest lists. Another potential piece of this puzzle. "Of course I'll be there," I said. "Great. I can't wait for you to see my dress. Mom would have loved it." Her voice caught slightly. Even 3 years later, Patricia's absence was a wound that hadn't fully healed for either of us. "She would have," I agreed, my throat tight. We talked for a few more minutes, Emma chattering about flowers and seating arrangements and the honeymoon they'd planned in Hawaii. I said all the right things, made all the right sounds, and the whole time my mind screamed at me to warn her, to tell her everything. But what would I say? Your fiancé is planning to murder me and someone stole my retirement savings. Without proof, I'd sound like a paranoid old man. Worse, if Brandon really was behind this, confronting Emma might warn him and make everything worse. The woman on the phone had said they'd kill me at the ceremony. If I tipped my hand too early, what would they do instead? After Emma hung up, I sat alone in my kitchen, as evening shadows lengthened across the tile floor Patricia had picked out 20 years ago. I'd lost nearly everything I'd saved over a lifetime of work. Someone was planning to murder me at my daughter's wedding, and I had less than 4 days to figure out who, why, and how to stop it. My phone buzzed with a new text. Different number, unknown sender. You called the first number. Big mistake. Now we know you know. Stop investigating or Emma dies too. The phone slipped from my hand and clattered on the table. My breath came in short gasps. This changed everything. By calling that number, by reacting to the warning, I'd shown my hand. Whoever sent the first message now knew I'd received it and taken it seriously, and now they were threatening Emma. I wasn't just a target anymore. By trying to investigate, I'd put my daughter in danger too. And whoever was behind this was watching my every move. I stared at that threatening text until my eyes burned. My daughter's life was now at stake. I couldn't go to the police because, what did I have? A mysterious warning. Stolen money that my bank insisted was legitimately transferred, and threatening texts from untraceable numbers. If I accused Brandon without evidence, I'd look like exactly what they wanted me to look like. A paranoid father trying to ruin his daughter's wedding. Around 9 o'clock that evening, my phone rang. Jerry Simmons, an old buddy, from my days investigating fraud. He still worked at the State Insurance Commission's fraud division. I'd called him earlier, asked him to quietly run a background check on Brandon Clark. "Charles, got some information for you," Jerry said. His voice had that careful tone he used when news wasn't good. "Brandon Clark's records are clean. Too clean, actually. No debt, excellent credit score, legitimate employment history going back 7 years. But here's what's weird. His social security number was only issued 9 years ago. What does that mean? It's unusual for someone claiming to be 32 years old. Usually means one of 3 things. Witness protection program, identity change after fleeing an abusive situation, or identity theft. Someone created Brandon Clark 9 years ago. Before that, he was someone else. My stomach dropped. Can you find out who he was before? Not without getting federal databases involved, and that requires warrants and official investigations. This is already pushing ethical boundaries, Charles. I'm doing this as a friend, but I can't dig deeper without proper authorization. I thanked Jerry and hung up. Brandon Clark wasn't even his real name. He'd reinvented himself 9 years ago. The question was why. I made a decision. I needed to see what Brandon was really doing. I grabbed my jacket and drove downtown to West Shore Investment Group. The building was a sleek glass tower near the waterfront. Brandon's car, a silver Lexus with custom rims, sat in the parking garage. It was after business hours, nearly 10 o'clock, but his car was still there. I parked across the street and waited. My old investigator instincts kicked in. I'd spent countless hours on surveillance during my career, watching fraud suspects, documenting their movements. This felt familiar, but terrifying because it involved my daughter's fiancé. 2 hours passed. My back ached. My bladder protested. Finally, at midnight, Brandon emerged from the building. But he wasn't alone. Emma was with him. They walked to his Lexus together, Brandon's arm around her waist. They seemed to be laughing about something. I waited until they pulled out of the garage, then followed at a safe distance, headlights off. My heart hammered. Where were they going at midnight? Brandon didn't drive toward Emma's apartment in the Pearl District. Instead, he headed east, away from downtown, through industrial areas I barely recognized in the darkness. We drove for 30 minutes. The neighborhoods got rougher, more abandoned. Finally, Brandon's Lexus turned into an access road behind an old warehouse near the river. I parked a block away and approached on foot, staying in the shadows. The warehouse looked abandoned, windows broken, graffiti on the concrete walls, but light glowed from inside. Brandon's Lexus sat behind the building next to 2 other vehicles, a black pickup truck and a white van. I crept closer, pulse pounding in my ears. Through a grimy window, I could see inside. Brandon and Emma stood in what looked like an old loading area. But they weren't alone. 4 other men stood with them. I recognized one immediately. Stephen Wu, the contractor who'd done renovations on my house 2 years ago. He'd replaced my kitchen counters, updated the bathroom, fixed the leaking roof. He'd been in my house for weeks. He'd had access to everything. My blood turned to ice. I moved closer to an open window, straining to hear their conversation. Fragments of words drifted out. "Accounts are almost empty." That was Brandon's voice. "After Saturday, the old man won't be a problem." Stephen's voice, casual and cold. Emma stood silently, arms crossed, looking uncomfortable. One of the other men, tall with a shaved head, asked, "What about the sister?" "Sister?" I froze. Emma didn't have a sister. She was an only child. Patricia couldn't have more children after Emma's difficult birth. We'd tried for years, endured miscarriages and disappointments, finally accepted Emma would be our only one. Then Emma spoke, and my world shattered into pieces. "He never knew about me," Emma said, her voice quiet. "My mother made sure of that. Patricia lied to him for 30 years. My knees nearly buckled. What was she talking about? Patricia lied? About what? The bald man pressed. "So there really is another daughter?" Brandon nodded. speaking with the confidence of someone explaining a well-rehearsed plan. Half-sister. Different mother. His first wife, before Patricia. She's the one who sent the warning. She's been watching Charles for years, wants her inheritance cut. First wife? I was never married before Patricia. This made no sense. My mind spun, trying to grasp what I was hearing. Brandon continued. Charles doesn't remember because it was annulled after 3 months. He was 22, drunk, married some woman in Atlantic City. Got it annulled, moved on, thought it was over. But the woman was pregnant, had a daughter. That daughter is now 50 years old and just discovered Charles exists. She hired a private investigator, found out about Emma's wedding, and decided to stop it because she thinks she deserves part of his estate. Atlantic City, 22 years old. The bachelor party for my college roommate. That lost weekend. I'd blocked it out, erased it from memory, because it was stupid and embarrassing. But a wife? A child? No, that couldn't be true. Except fragments of memory flickered, waking up in a strange hotel. A gold ring on my finger. My buddies laughing, telling me I'd gotten married to some blonde woman from the casino bar. The panicked rush to undo it. The annulment papers I'd signed in a lawyer's office, hungover and mortified. Had that woman been pregnant? Had there been a child I never knew about? Stephen Wu spoke again, pulling me from my spiral. Doesn't matter if it's true or not. The old man's money is already gone. By the time he figures out the accounts are empty, we're in Mexico. Emma gets married, plays the grieving daughter when Charles dies in the tragic accident at the wedding, and we split everything. Emma's voice, soft and uncertain. I still don't feel good about the murder part. Brandon put his arm around her, pulled her close. Baby, he's old. Would have died in a few years anyway. This way you get everything now. You can start your life without waiting around for an inheritance. My daughter, my Emma. The little girl I'd taught to ride a bike, walked to her first day of school, held while she cried over her mother's deathbed. She was part of this. She was planning my murder. The horror of it paralyzed me. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. My own child wanted me dead. One of the other men suddenly pointed toward the window where I stood. Someone's out there. They'd seen my shadow. I ran. Behind me, shouts erupted. Footsteps pounded. I sprinted through the darkness, my 63-year-old legs pumping, lungs burning. I reached my car, fumbled with the keys, started the engine. In my rearview mirror, Brandon's Lexus roared to life. They were following me. I peeled out, tires squealing. The industrial streets were empty at this hour, just pools of amber streetlight and deep shadows. I blew through a red light, took a sharp right turn. The Lexus stayed close. Brandon knew these streets. He was gaining. I swerved left into a residential neighborhood, cut through a parking lot, emerged on another street. The Lexus appeared behind me, high beams blazing. My hands gripped the wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. Another turn. Another. I wove through subdivisions I barely knew, praying I wouldn't hit a dead end. Finally, I lost them. I emerged onto a main road, saw the Lexus turn the wrong direction 3 blocks back. I kept driving, took random turns, and eventually pulled into an all-night diner parking lot. I sat there, engine running, hands shaking so violently I could barely hold the steering wheel. Everything I thought I knew was wrong. My daughter was trying to kill me. My money was gone. There was supposedly a secret half-sister I'd never known existed who'd sent that warning. And Brandon's crew knew I'd been spying on them. My phone buzzed. Voicemail notification. I'd missed a call during the chase. The first unknown number, the woman's voice, had left a message. With trembling fingers, I played it. Charles, if you're listening, we need to meet. I'm your daughter Angela, your real daughter. I can prove everything. Meet me at Riverside Park, North Entrance, 6 tomorrow morning. Come alone. I have documents that will expose everything. But hurry. They're planning to move up the wedding. You might not have until Saturday. The message ended. I sat in that diner parking lot, surrounded by the smell of frying bacon and exhaust fumes, and tried to process it all. A daughter named Angela, claiming to be mine. Emma, planning my murder. Brandon and Stephen coordinating the theft of my life savings. The wedding potentially happening sooner than Saturday. And I had less than 12 hours to meet this stranger who might be lying, or might be my only hope for survival. I didn't sleep. How could I? I sat in my car in that diner parking lot all night, researching Atlantic City marriage records from 48 years ago on my phone. Public records from that era were spotty, scattered across different databases, many not digitized. I found nothing under my name, just empty searches and error messages. At 5:30 in the morning, exhausted and terrified, I drove to Riverside Park. The sun hadn't risen yet. Fog rolled off the Willamette River, thick and cold. The park was deserted, playground equipment emerging from the mist like ghosts. I waited at the north entrance, standing under a street lamp, watching every shadow. At precisely 6 o'clock, a woman approached from the direction of the river path. She wore a gray coat, jeans, and carried a manila folder. She looked nervous, constantly glancing over her shoulder. "Charles?" she asked when she got close enough. I nodded. Up close, I could see her face more clearly. She was about 50 years old, with brown hair cut in a practical bob. Lines around her eyes that suggested she smiled often, though she wasn't smiling now. Something about her face looked familiar, but I couldn't place it. "I'm Angela Porter," she said. "I'm your daughter." We sat on a park bench, damp with morning dew. The fog-muffled sounds made the world feel small and isolated. Angela kept the manila folder on her lap, both hands gripping it like a lifeline. "In 1977, she began, her voice steady but quiet. "You went to Atlantic City for a bachelor party for your college roommate. You got extremely drunk. You met a woman named Caroline Porter at a casino bar. At 2 in the morning, you two got married at a 24-hour chapel. The next day, you woke up horrified. You got the marriage annulled within a month. The memories were hazy, but they were there. The chapel, the Elvis impersonator, Caroline, the blonde woman with the bright laugh, the shame and panic of the next morning." Angela continued. "Caroline was devastated. 2 months after the annulment, she discovered she was pregnant. She tried to contact you, but you'd already moved to Oregon for a new job. She couldn't find you. She raised me alone in Newark, New Jersey, working as a waitress at a diner off Route 9. She never married. Never told me who my father was until she was dying." "Dying?" I repeated. "Liver disease. Last year. She died in October." Angela's voice cracked slightly. "With her last breaths, she told me about you, about that weekend in Atlantic City. She gave me a shoebox she'd kept hidden for 50 years. Documents, photos, everything." Angela opened the manila folder. Inside, protected in plastic sleeves, were documents that made my heart stop. A marriage certificate, faded, yellowed, but official. Charles Edward Morrison, age 22, married to Caroline Jean Porter, age 21, Atlantic City, New Jersey. July 15th, 1977. Witnessed by someone named Elvis Presley, which should have been funny but wasn't. An annulment document dated 4 weeks later. Both are signatures. A birth certificate. Angela Marie Porter, born April 19th, 1978, in Newark, New Jersey. Father listed as unknown. And a photograph. Faded color, edges worn. A young man barely recognizable as me, standing outside a casino, arm around a young blonde woman. We were both smiling, looking drunk and happy and stupid. Looking at these documents, more memories surfaced. Details I'd buried. Caroline's perfume, the cheap champagne we'd drunk, her laugh. The wedding chapel, with its plastic flowers and neon cross. The ring I'd bought from a pawn shop for $60. "Why now?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "Why contact me after 50 years?" "I wasn't going to," Angela said. "When Mom died, I hired a private investigator to find you, just to know, to see what kind of man you were. I didn't plan to contact you. I didn't want money, or a relationship. I just wanted to know. But my investigator kept digging. I paid him for a full background check. He discovered something terrible about your daughter Emma's fiancé." Angela pulled out her phone, showed me a series of news articles she'd saved. 3 separate cases, 3 older men with adult daughters, 3 charming fiancés who'd swept the daughters off their feet. 3 weddings, 3 deaths ruled accidental, 3 families left devastated and financially ruined. "Brandon Clark isn't his real name," Angela said. "His real name is Brandon Kowalski. He's a con artist. He's done this 3 times before in the past decade. One man died at his daughter's wedding in Nevada 6 years ago. Fell from a hotel balcony during the reception. Police ruled it accidental. Another man died in Arizona 4 years ago. Heart attack during the ceremony, they said. A third man in Colorado 2 years ago. Drowned in the hotel pool after the rehearsal dinner." She showed me photographs. Different faces, different names. Brandon Cortez, Brian Carmichael, Brad Connolly. But facial recognition software confirmed it. Same man, Same eyes. Same smile. He has a crew, Angela continued. They target families, romance the daughters, steal everything, stage accidents, disappear. In each case, the daughter was left, broke, confused, grieving, and by the time she realized she'd been scammed, Brandon was gone. Does Emma know? I asked desperately. Angela shook her head. I don't think so. I think she's a victim too. That's why I sent you the warning. I've never met you, but you're still my biological father. I couldn't let them kill you. Relief and horror warred in my chest. Emma wasn't part of the conspiracy. She was being used. But that meant Brandon was even more dangerous than I'd thought. Why didn't you go to the police? I asked. Angela sighed, a sound full of frustration. I did. I tried. But there's no concrete evidence linking these cases. Each death was ruled accidental. The victims' families thought their daughters just had bad luck with fiancés. No one connected the pattern until my investigator did. And the money? Brandon's crew is sophisticated. They make everything look legitimate. Without proof of fraud, without proof Brandon is the same person as these other men, police won't act. We need to catch him in the act. My mind raced through possibilities. What if I wore a wire to the rehearsal dinner? Got Brandon to confess? Dangerous, Angela warned. If he suspects anything, you could die before police arrive. But it might be our only option. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small device that looked like a pen. Digital recording device. Virtually undetectable. Records up to 6 hours of audio. If you can isolate Brandon, confront him about the stolen money, get him to admit to the theft, or threaten you, that's enough for police involvement. We tested the device right there on the bench. It worked perfectly, picking up our voices clearly despite the fog and distance. Angela showed me how to activate it with a simple twist of the pen clip. Tomorrow evening, I said. The rehearsal dinner. I'll wear this. Try to get Brandon alone. Record whatever he says. You'll wait nearby? I'll be in a coffee shop across from the Hilton. Phone ready. If you signal danger, I call 911 immediately. For the first time in 2 days, I felt something like hope. I had an ally. I had a plan. I had proof Brandon was dangerous. Tomorrow night, I'd expose everything. Save Emma. Recover my money. Get justice. We arranged to meet again tomorrow evening, an hour before the rehearsal dinner. Angela would give me final instructions on how to use the recording device and what to try to get Brandon to say. As I walked back to my car, I felt almost optimistic. The fog was lifting. Morning sun broke through the clouds. I had a daughter I'd never known, and she was helping me survive. What I didn't see was the black SUV parked across the street, tinted windows concealing the man inside. Stephen Wu watched through binoculars, taking photographs. Charles and the woman on the bench. Talking. Planning. He captured dozens of shots. As soon as Charles drove away, Stephen made a phone call. Boss. The old man met with some woman in the park. They talked for an hour. Looked serious. She showed him documents. Brandon's voice came through cold and controlled. Did you get photos of the woman? Yeah. Clear shots. Good. Run her face through our database. Find out who she is. If she's a cop or private investigator, we move the plan up. Charles dies tonight. I drove home, unaware I'd been photographed, unaware Brandon's crew was identifying Angela at that very moment. I parked in my garage, walked to my front door, and found it unlocked. I was certain I'd locked it before leaving. My heart hammered. I pushed the door open slowly. The living room was trashed, furniture overturned, drawers emptied onto the floor, books pulled from shelves. Someone had searched my house, looking for something. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Upstairs. I wasn't alone. Before I could run, 2 men appeared at the top of the stairs. Stephen Wu, the contractor who'd renovated my house. And beside him, a large, tattooed man I'd never seen before, with arms like tree trunks and a scar running down his left cheek. Stephen smiled, cold and cruel. Hello, Charles. We need to talk about your new friend Angela. Stephen Wu and the tattooed man, who Stephen introduced as Mac, forced me to sit at my own kitchen table. Stephen pulled up a chair across from me, relaxed and confident. Mac stood by the doorway, arms crossed, blocking any escape route. His presence alone was intimidating. He stood at least 6 feet 4 inches tall, probably weighed 260 pounds, all muscle. Stephen pulled out his phone, swiped through photos, then turned the screen toward me. Pictures of me and Angela, on the park bench, different angles, close-ups. Who's the woman? My mind raced. If I revealed Angela's identity, I'd put her in danger. But if I lied convincingly, they might hurt me to extract the truth. I made a split-second decision. She's a financial advisor, I said, keeping my voice as steady as possible. I hired her to help me track where my money went. Stephen studied me for a long moment. Then he laughed, a harsh sound without humor. You're lying. We ran her face through our facial recognition database. Angela Porter, age 50, lives in Newark, New Jersey. No financial licenses, no advisory certifications. But you know what's interesting? He leaned forward, elbows on my kitchen table. Her maiden name is Porter. Her mother was Caroline Porter. And Caroline Porter married someone named Charles Morrison in Atlantic City in 1977 for about 5 minutes. Stephen's smile widened. So let me ask again. Who is Angela Porter to you? My stomach dropped. They knew everything. All the research I'd thought was private, all the secrets I'd just learned, they already knew. Stephen leaned back, clearly enjoying this. Here's what's funny, old man. You think Brandon's the only one running a con here? You think this is just about your $300,000? He laughed again, shaking his head. Brandon's small time. He's just the face, the charmer who seduces the daughters and plays the devoted fiancé. I'm the one who put this whole operation together. I'm the architect. My confusion must have shown on my face, because Stephen continued, seeming eager to explain his cleverness. I was doing your house renovation 2 years ago, remember? Nice guy, good contractor, you trusted me completely. You even made me coffee in the mornings, showed me pictures of Emma, told me about Patricia's death, and while you were being so friendly, I was photographing every document in your house. That little notebook you kept in your desk drawer with all your passwords? Copied every page. Your financial statements? Photographed. Your social security card, birth certificate, everything? All copied. The renovation. 2 years ago, Stephen had been in my house for 6 weeks, replacing counters, fixing pipes, updating fixtures. He'd had complete access. He'd seemed so trustworthy, so professional. I'd never suspected. But then, Stephen continued, I met Emma. Sweet, naive Emma. She came by the house one day to drop off some documents for you. We got talking. I learned she was single, working at that nonprofit, lonely after her mother's death. And I thought, why just steal from the old man when I could steal everything and get rid of him permanently? He pulled out his own phone, showed me a photo. Brandon, younger, in prison orange. I met Brandon in lockup 8 years ago. Short stint for me. Embezzlement. Longer stint for him. Multiple fraud charges. We stayed in touch. When I saw the opportunity with you and Emma, I recruited him. He's good at playing the romantic lead. Emma fell hard. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Stephen had orchestrated everything from the beginning. The renovation was never just a renovation. It was reconnaissance, access, preparation. Meanwhile, Stephen said, I slowly drained your accounts, using all that information I'd copied. The wedding became the perfect setup. We'd stage your death to look like a heart attack or an accident during the ceremony. With you dead, Emma inherits the house and whatever assets remain. Brandon marries Emma, controls everything, then divorces her a year later, takes half in the settlement. Stephen and Brandon split the total take. The stolen retirement funds, plus Emma's inheritance. Emma ends up with nothing, widowed and broke, before she's 30. Rage flooded through me, hot and consuming. My daughter was being manipulated, used as a pawn. Her genuine love for Brandon was just a tool for these criminals. Does Emma know any of this? I asked, my voice shaking. Stephen shook his head, almost looking amused. Emma's a complete victim. She genuinely loves Brandon, has no idea he's using her. That's what makes it perfect. After you die and Brandon eventually takes everything, Emma will be so heartbroken she won't think clearly enough to question the financials. By the time she realizes she's been scammed, we're in Mexico with new identities and full bank accounts. I lunged at him. My chair scraped back, and I reached for Stephen's throat. I don't know what I thought I'd accomplish. I'm 63, not in great shape, up against 2 younger, stronger men. But fury overrode logic. Mac grabbed me before I took 2 steps. His hand clamped on my shoulder like a vice, pain exploding through my body. He slammed me back into the chair with enough force to knock the wind from my lungs. My shoulder screamed with pain. I tasted blood where I'd bitten my tongue. Easy, old man, Mac said. His voice was surprisingly soft, almost gentle, which somehow made him more terrifying. Stephen barely reacted to my attack, just watched with that cold smile. Now, the Angela problem. We didn't know about her. That's sloppy on our part, I'll admit. She's the one who sent you that warning text. She's been investigating. The question is, what has she discovered? What did you two talk about in the park? I stayed silent. Mac hit me, an open-handed slap across my face that made my ears ring and stars explode in my vision. I tasted more blood. I'll ask again, Stephen said calmly. What did Angela tell you? They interrogated me for 20 minutes. Every time I refused to answer, Mac hit me. Across the face. In the stomach. My ribs. Professional blows that hurt tremendously, but left me conscious and able to talk. They knew what they were doing. Finally, exhausted, bleeding, in more pain than I'd felt since Patricia's funeral when grief had been a physical weight on my chest, I broke. I told them about the documents, the marriage certificate, the previous cases Angela's investigator had found, the pattern of deaths in Nevada, Arizona, Colorado, the proof that Brandon had done this before under different names. Stephen's face darkened as I spoke. When I finished, he pulled out his phone and made a call. We have a problem, he said to whoever answered. There's a witness with documentation linking us to the Nevada case and the others. We need cleanup. Newark, New Jersey. Angela Porter. Send the team now. He listened for a moment, then hung up. He looked at me with something like pity. You just signed Angela's death warrant, Charles. My guys are heading to Newark right now. She'll be dead before sunset. Horror crashed over me. By revealing what Angela knew, trying to save myself, I'd condemned her to death. My daughter, the daughter I'd just met, who'd tried to save my life, who'd bankrupted herself to help me, and I'd just gotten her killed. I tried to grab Stephen's phone, to call Angela and warn her. Mac punched me in the stomach. I collapsed, gasping, unable to breathe. The pain was unlike anything I'd experienced. I curled up, fighting for air. Stephen stood, looked down at me with disgust. Here's what's going to happen. Tonight, you're going to have a tragic accident. Gas leak in your house. You'll die of carbon monoxide poisoning in your sleep. Happens to old people all the time. Emma will find you tomorrow morning when she comes to pick you up for the rehearsal dinner. She'll be devastated. The wedding will be postponed out of respect. 2 months later, when everyone's forgotten, Brandon and Emma will have a quiet ceremony. Then the rest of the plan proceeds. He nodded to Mac. Set it up. Make it look natural. Mac moved toward the basement door where my gas furnace and water heater were located. This was it. They were going to kill me right now, in my own house, and make it look like an accident. Just as Mac reached the basement door, someone knocked on my front door. Everyone froze. The knock came again, louder. A woman's voice called out, "Dad? Are you home?" "Your car's in the driveway." "Emma." My daughter was here. Stephen's expression shifted from confident to alert. He whispered urgently, "Get rid of her, or we kill her too." Mac pulled out a knife from his belt, a hunting knife, with a 6-inch blade that gleamed in my kitchen light. I had seconds to make an impossible choice. If Emma came inside, she'd see everything. Stephen and Mac would hurt her, maybe kill her to protect their plan. But if I acted too suspicious while sending her away, she'd insist on coming in or call for help, which would trigger them to act violently. I staggered to my feet, every muscle protesting. Stephen and Mac positioned themselves behind the door where Emma wouldn't see them. I opened the door just a crack, keeping the chain lock engaged. Emma stood on my porch, holding 2 cups of coffee from the local shop, and a bag that smelled like fresh bagels. She wore jeans and a sweatshirt with her college logo. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She looked so young, so innocent, so completely unaware of the nightmare surrounding her. "Surprise," she said, smiling. "I thought we could have breakfast together, just the 2 of us, before all the wedding craziness starts." She tried to push the door open, but the chain stopped her. She peered at me through the crack, and her smile faded. "Dad, are you okay?" "You look." She studied my face, the blood, the swelling. "You're bleeding. Let me in." Behind me, I heard Stephen's whispered threat. "Get her inside or we handle it our way." If Emma came in, she was dead. If I acted too suspicious, she'd call for help and force their hand. My mind raced through options, finding none that saved us both. I made a decision. I looked Emma directly in the eyes and said carefully, clearly, "Emma, listen to me. I love you more than anything in this world. I need you to trust me right now. Go home. Don't come back today. Don't call me. Tomorrow morning, meet me at Riverside Park, North Entrance, 6 o'clock. Come alone. Don't tell Brandon or anyone else. Your life depends on it. Do you understand?" Emma's face shifted from concern to fear. Dad, what's happening? You're scaring me. Let me in. Let me help you. 6 o'clock, I repeated. Riverside Park. Trust me. Now go, please. Emma hesitated, clearly torn between worry and confusion. She looked at the blood on my face, the way I was blocking the door, the urgency in my voice. Finally, slowly, she nodded. Okay, but if you don't show up tomorrow, I'm calling the police. I mean it, Dad. She backed away from the door, still watching me with frightened eyes. I watched her get in her car and drive away. Only when she disappeared around the corner did I close the door and turn to face Stephen and Mac. Stephen was furious. You just told her to meet you tomorrow. That's a problem. A big problem. He made another phone call, speaking quickly. Change of plans. We can't wait until tonight. Too risky, he warned the daughter. We need to do this now and make it look like a home invasion gone wrong. Violent robbery. Then we grab the daughter before she talks to anyone. He hung up and looked at me with cold finality. You just accelerated your own death. And Emma's. Mac advanced toward me, knife in hand. I backed toward the kitchen, looking desperately for a weapon. Anything. My hand closed around the handle of a cast-iron skillet sitting on my stove, one Patricia had used for decades to make Sunday morning pancakes. As Mac lunged, I swung. The skillet connected with his temple with a sound like a hammer hitting wood. Mac's eyes rolled back. He collapsed, the knife clattering across my tile floor. He didn't move. Stephen yelled, fumbled in his jacket, pulled out a gun, a black automatic pistol that looked military-grade and utterly terrifying in my small kitchen. I ran, crashed through my back door into the yard. A gunshot exploded behind me, so loud it made my ears ring. The doorframe next to my head splintered. I sprinted across my lawn, my old legs pumping with adrenaline-fueled desperation. Another gunshot. I heard the bullet whiz past. I vaulted over my fence into my neighbor's yard, landing badly, my ankle twisting. Pain shot up my leg, but I kept running, zigzagged between houses. Emerged onto the street just as an older couple in a Buick drove past. I ran into the road, waving my arms frantically. The Buick screeched to a stop. The elderly woman driving rolled down her window, her face alarmed. Call 911, I gasped, leaning on their car. Home invasion! They have guns! The woman's husband, a man in his 70s with thick glasses, pulled out his phone with shaking hands. Then I saw Stephen's car, a dark blue sedan, screech around the corner, heading straight for us. The engine roared as he accelerated. Drive! I shouted. Go! The woman hit the gas. The Buick lurched forward. Stephen's car clipped our rear bumper, sending us into a spin. I was thrown to the pavement, pain exploding through my body as I hit the asphalt. The Buick spun twice, tires screaming, before coming to rest against a mailbox. Stephen's car screeched to a stop. The driver's door flew open. Stephen jumped out, gun raised. But sirens were approaching, growing louder. Someone in the neighborhood had heard the gunshots and called police. Stephen cursed, got back in his car, and sped away. 2 patrol cars arrived within minutes, followed by an ambulance. I lay on the pavement, bleeding from a dozen cuts and scrapes, my ribs screaming, my ankle swelling. The elderly couple from the Buick were shaken but unharmed, giving statements to officers. Paramedics loaded me into the ambulance. Police officers asked questions I could barely answer through the pain and shock. I tried to explain. Home invasion, theft, murder plot, my daughter's wedding. But I could see skepticism in their eyes. To them, I looked like an injured elderly man, possibly confused from head trauma, bleeding and disoriented. They took notes. They promised to investigate. But I could tell they thought I might be senile, paranoid, or both. As the ambulance pulled away, heading to Portland General Hospital, one thought dominated my mind. I had less than 24 hours until the rehearsal dinner, and everything was falling apart even faster than before. At Portland General Hospital, doctors treated my injuries. Broken rib, the X-ray confirmed. Severe bruising across my torso and face. Lacerations, requiring 17 stitches. Sprained ankle. Possible concussion. They wanted to admit me overnight for observation. While doctors worked, police officers took my statement. I told them everything. Brandon Clark was a con artist. Stephen Wu broke into my house. They stole my retirement funds. They were planning to kill me at my daughter's wedding. The officers wrote it all down in their notepads, but I could see the doubt on their faces. Without evidence, It sounded like paranoid rambling from a confused old man. They promised to send officers to my house to investigate the alleged break-in. They'd look into Stephen Wu, but I could tell they weren't taking it seriously. Just another elderly person with wild theories. Then, I remembered the recording device Angela had given me. It was still in my coat pocket, or should be. If police found it, they'd ask questions I couldn't answer without revealing Angela's involvement and putting her in more danger. But I needed that device. It was my only way to record Brandon's confession. I told the officers I needed to go home, retrieve important documents. They informed me my house was now a crime scene, and I couldn't enter until it had been processed. Standard procedure. I'd have to wait. My phone rang. Emma. She sounded frantic. Dad, the police just came to my apartment. They said you were attacked. Are you okay? I'm coming to the hospital right now. Panic flooded through me. If Emma came here, she might run into police asking about Brandon. That could alert Brandon that law enforcement was involved, make him disappear or accelerate his plans. No, honey, don't come, I said, trying to sound calm despite the pain and fear. It was just a burglary attempt. I scared them off. I'm fine, just some scrapes. I'll be home soon. Dad, you're at the hospital. You're not fine. Minor injuries, being overcautious. Listen, the rehearsal dinner is tonight, right? 6 o'clock at the Hilton? Yes, but you don't have to come if you're hurt. I'll be there, I promised. I wouldn't miss it for anything. Emma didn't sound convinced, but she agreed to stay home. She reminded me she loved me, that she was worried about me. The concern in her voice made my chest ache. She had no idea she was in love with a man planning to destroy her life. A text arrived from Angela's number. Charles, I heard what happened. Are you safe? We need to talk immediately. They're looking for me. I had to leave my apartment. Meet me at the original location in 1 hour. Critical information. I texted back that I was at the hospital. Couldn't leave yet. Angela responded. As soon as you can. I discovered who's really behind everything. It's not Brandon. He's middle management. There's someone higher up. Someone higher up? The conspiracy kept expanding, layer upon layer, like peeling an onion to find only more onion. By 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'd convinced doctors to discharge me against medical advice. I signed forms acknowledging I was leaving without recommendation. An Uber took me back to my neighborhood. Police tapes surrounded my house. Officers moved in and out, photographing, documenting. I watched from across the street, feeling violated and helpless. Mrs. Davidson, my neighbor of 20 years, approached. She'd seen the commotion earlier, the ambulance, the police. I explained I needed to retrieve something from my house, but officers wouldn't let me in. Mrs. Davidson mentioned her son was a police officer in the same precinct. She made a call. 20 minutes later, an officer I hadn't met arrived. He was sympathetic but firm. I couldn't enter an active crime scene. However, he agreed to retrieve specific items if I told him exactly where they were. I described my coat in the kitchen, hanging on the back of a chair. The officer went inside, returned 5 minutes later with the coat. I checked the pocket. The recording pen was still there. Relief flooded through me so intensely, I nearly wept. I took another Uber to Riverside Park. Angela waited on the same bench where we'd met that morning, though it felt like a lifetime ago. She'd changed her appearance dramatically. Her hair was now short and dyed dark brown instead of the bob from this morning. She wore sunglasses and a baseball cap pulled low. I'm being followed, she said immediately when I sat down. 2 men came to my apartment building in Newark this morning, right after you and I talked. A neighbor saw them breaking into the lobby and called to warn me. I ran. I've been running all day. I flew here using cash, changed clothes in an airport bathroom, bought hair dye at a drugstore. But they're professional. They'll find me. I showed her my injuries, explained what happened at my house, Stephen and Mac, the interrogation, the escape. Angela listened with mounting horror. It's worse than I thought, she said. She pulled out her phone, showed me a photograph. A woman in her late 40s, elegant, with sharp features and calculating eyes. This is Victoria Lang. She runs the entire operation. Brandon works for her. Stephen works for her. They have operatives running cons across 6 states simultaneously. They've stolen millions over the past decade. Who is she? I asked. Angela zoomed in on the photo. Recognition hit me like cold water. That's Veronica Landry, I said. Emma's wedding planner. Angela nodded grimly. Victoria Lang is her real name. Veronica Landry is the alias she's using for this job. She's been in your house multiple times, coordinating with Emma about wedding details. She knows exactly when and where everyone will be during the ceremony. She's planning your murder herself. Everything clicked into place. Veronica had been at my house 6 times over the past 4 months, meeting with Emma about flowers, seating charts, music selections. She'd walked through every room. She'd seen the layout. She'd drunk coffee at my kitchen table, while Emma showed her Pinterest boards of wedding ideas. Tonight's rehearsal dinner isn't just a rehearsal, Angela said urgently. My investigator intercepted communications. They moved the plan up. They're going to kill you tonight at the Hilton. Victoria will be there as the wedding planner. Brandon, Stephen, and the rest of the crew will be positioned throughout the venue. They'll stage it to look like you had a heart attack during your father of the bride speech. The rehearsal dinner, tonight, in 3 hours. I have to go, I said. If I don't show, they'll know I'm on to them. They'll go after Emma immediately. Angela agreed reluctantly. I'll position myself outside the Hilton. Phone ready. The moment you signal danger, I call 911. We tested the recording pen again. Still working. Angela gave me final instructions. Try to isolate Brandon or Stephen. Confront them about the stolen money. Get them to admit to the crimes or threaten me. Any recorded confession would be enough to involve real police. It was incredibly risky. But it was the only play we had left. I arrived at the Hilton at 5:30, 30 minutes before the rehearsal dinner was scheduled to start. The hotel ballroom was being set up, staff arranging tables with white linens and centerpieces. Emma stood near the front, talking to catering staff, her face glowing with bride-to-be happiness. She rushed over when she saw me, horrified by my bruised face, my split lip, the bandage on my forehead. Dad! Oh my God, what happened? Just a fall, I lied. Tripped on the front steps this morning. Nothing serious. Looks worse than it is. She didn't believe me, but didn't press. Brandon approached, all charm and concern, putting his arm around Emma's shoulders. He looked at my injuries with what seemed like genuine worry. Charles, are you all right? Maybe you should rest instead of attending tonight. Wouldn't miss it, I said, forcing a smile. Looking at Brandon, knowing what he really was, took every ounce of self-control I possessed. Veronica, the wedding planner, appeared, clipboard in hand, wearing a professional smile that didn't reach her eyes. She assessed me with those calculating eyes, seeing the injuries, likely guessing I'd been in a fight. Charles, so glad you could make it despite your accident, she said smoothly. We have a wonderful evening planned. The rehearsal dinner was intimate, just immediate family and the wedding party. About 30 people total. Emma's friends from college. Brandon's supposed friends, who I now suspected were crew members. A few distant relatives of mine. I was seated at the head table between Emma and her best friend Claire. Brandon sat on Emma's other side. Veronica circulated, managing everything with precision. I noticed Stephen Wu was there, posing as venue staff, wearing a hotel uniform. The audacity shocked me. After trying to kill me this morning, he was here, in plain sight. Appetizers were served. Small talk flowed around me. Everyone was so happy, so oblivious. They had no idea they were at a planned murder scene. After appetizers, Veronica stood, tapped her wine glass for attention. Before the main course, we'd love to hear a few words from the father of the bride. Everyone applauded. Emma smiled at me, her eyes shining. This was my moment to speak, to express my love for my daughter, to welcome Brandon into our family. This was also the moment they planned to kill me. I stood, heart pounding. The recording pen was in my breast pocket. Activated. I needed to somehow isolate Brandon or Stephen, but everyone was watching, waiting for my speech. I began talking about Emma, as a little girl, learning to ride a bike, her first day of school. How proud Patricia would have been to see this day. Emma's eyes welled with tears. The room was silent, attentive, everyone caught up in the emotion. I was midway through a story about Emma's high school graduation, when the ballroom doors burst open. Police officers flooded in, at least a dozen, guns drawn. Nobody move. Police. Chaos erupted. People screamed. Chairs scraped. Emma grabbed my arm in terror. I was stunned. I hadn't called them. Angela was supposed to wait for my signal. What was happening? Officers moved through the crowd, but they weren't surrounding Brandon. They weren't moving towards Stephen or Veronica. They were surrounding me. The lead officer, a stern woman in her 40s with sergeant stripes, approached my table. Charles Morrison, you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and attempted murder. You have the right to remain silent. The world tilted. This couldn't be happening. They were arresting me, not Brandon, not the actual criminals, me. Veronica stepped forward, speaking to the sergeant. Thank goodness you arrived in time, officer. This man has been threatening my clients for weeks, making wild accusations, stalking them. We have documentation of his attempts to extort money from Mr. Clark. We believe he staged the home invasion himself this morning to create false evidence and generate sympathy. No, I tried to say. But officers were handcuffing me, reading my rights. Emma looked confused and frightened. Brandon put his arm around her protectively, whispering something in her ear that made her look at me with hurt and betrayal. I realized with absolute horror what had happened. They'd set me up. While I thought I was investigating them, they were building a case against me. They'd created evidence, fabricated documents, prepared witnesses. The police believed I was the criminal, the crazy old man harassing his daughter's innocent fiancé. As officers led me out of the ballroom, past shocked guests and crying Emma, I locked eyes with Veronica. She smiled at me, cold and victorious, a smile that said, "You lose." And Angela, my only ally, was nowhere to be seen. Possibly captured, possibly killed, possibly just gone, unable to help me anymore. I'd walked into a trap so perfect, so complete, that even trying to expose the conspiracy had become proof of my guilt. They took me to the police station, processed me like a common criminal. Fingerprints, photographs, the humiliation of being searched, my belt and shoelaces confiscated. I tried explaining to every officer who would listen. I was being framed. Brandon Clark was the real criminal. Veronica Lang ran a scam operation. They'd heard it all before. Every arrested person claims innocence. When they found the recording pen during the search, it only confirmed their suspicions. Planning to secretly record people without their knowledge? That's illegal in Oregon without consent. Mr. Morrison, you're making this worse for yourself. The formal charges were read to me. Attempted extortion of Brandon Clark. Fraud in falsifying documents. Making terroristic threats. The district attorney's office had a file on me, thick with evidence Brandon's legal team had provided. The file included transcripts of threatening texts I'd allegedly sent Brandon. Messages saying things like, "I know what you're planning," and "You'll never get away with this." Texts I never sent, but sent from numbers that traced back to phones registered in my name, phones I didn't know existed. Bank records showing I'd made suspicious transactions, moving money between accounts to hide assets. Actually, the records of Steven stealing my money, but presented as evidence I was embezzling from my own accounts to frame someone else. Witness statements from wedding guests, claiming I'd been erratic and aggressive in recent weeks, making bizarre accusations about Brandon. Lies fed to them by Veronica's crew. People planted at wedding events specifically to later testify against me. My bail hearing happened at midnight. A judge, annoyed at being woken up, set bail at $100,000. I couldn't pay it. My accounts were empty. I was assigned a public defender, a tired-looking woman in her early 30s named Rachel Hunt, who had a coffee stain on her blouse and dark circles under her eyes. Rachel had 17 other cases. She listened to my story with visible skepticism, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she looked at me with something like pity. "Mr. Morrison, I'll be honest with you. The evidence against you is substantial. Very substantial. You're looking at potential prison time. Given your age and lack of criminal history, I might be able to negotiate a plea deal, maybe get you probation and mandatory counseling instead of jail time." "I didn't do any of this," I insisted. "That's what everyone says," she replied, not unkindly. "But the prosecution has phone records, financial documents, witness statements. Fighting this at trial would be expensive and risky. Let me see what kind of deal I can work out." I was placed in a holding cell to wait for processing. The cell was small, concrete walls, a metal bench, a toilet with no seat. I shared it with another man, a grizzled 50-something, with a scar across his cheek and prison tattoos on his arms. The man introduced himself as Danny. "Tough night?" I had nothing left to lose. I told him everything. The warning text, Angela, Brandon's con, the stolen money, the frame job. Danny listened quietly, nodding occasionally. When I finished, Danny said, "You got played by pros. I've seen it before. 15 years I spent running cons before I got caught. You know what your mistake was? You thought you were the investigator. You weren't. You were the mark from the beginning," he explained. "Criminal organizations like Brandon's don't just react to threats. They anticipate them. The moment Angela contacted me, they knew someone was investigating. Every move I made after that, they were 3 steps ahead. The interrogation at my house? They wanted me to reveal what Angela knew, so they could neutralize her. The car chase through the neighborhood? They made sure witnesses saw me as a victim, establishing a pattern of erratic behavior and instability. The arrest at the rehearsal dinner? Perfect timing to make me look dangerous and unhinged in front of everyone who mattered. They're not just stealing your money, Danny said. They're stealing your life, your reputation, your daughter. It's total destruction. By the time they're done, you'll be in prison or dead, and no one will believe a word you say. His words settled over me like a burial shroud. He was right. I'd lost. Completely. At 2 o'clock in the morning, a guard came to the cell. "Morrison, you made bail." I was stunned. I didn't have anyone to post bail. I was led to the processing area. Sitting in the waiting room, looking exhausted but determined, was Angela. "I scraped together everything I had," she said when I was released. "Sold my car, maxed out 3 credit cards, borrowed from everyone I know. I got you out." Outside the police station, under harsh streetlights in the cold night air, I nearly broke down. This woman, my daughter I'd known for 2 days, had bankrupted herself to free me. "My investigator Tom has been working non-stop," Angela said as we walked to her rental car. "He found locations of 3 more of Victoria's operatives running active cons in California, Texas, and Florida. He's compiled a comprehensive dossier, but here's the problem. It's all circumstantial. Patterns, connections, suspicions. Nothing directly proves Brandon stole your money or planned to kill you. Not enough for prosecution." "What about the recording pen?" I asked. "Illegal without consent. Can't be used in court. And now police have it as evidence of your intent to illegally record people." We sat in her rental car, a cheap economy model, heat blasting, but not warming the chill in my bones. Emma's wedding was tomorrow, Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock. After the wedding, Brandon and his crew would disappear. Emma would be legally married, giving Brandon even more control over whatever remained. And I had a restraining order coming, criminal charges pending, and no way to stop any of it. "We need to contact the FBI," Angela said. "I have contacts in the Bureau's white-collar crime division. If we can convince an agent to take this seriously, maybe we can raid the wedding before it happens." It was 3 in the morning on Saturday. We'd have to wait until business hours. That gave us maybe 8 hours before the wedding. Angela had been staying at a cheap motel near the airport, paying cash to avoid being tracked. We went there. I crashed on the floor, sleeping fitfully for 3 hours. At 7 o'clock, Angela woke me. "Charles, we have a problem." She showed me her phone. A breaking news story. Prominent wedding planner Veronica Landry found dead in hotel room early Saturday morning. Police investigating possible suicide. I stared at the article in disbelief. Veronica was dead. The mastermind. Killed and staged as suicide. Just like Angela had warned happened to witnesses. "They're cleaning up," Angela said. "With Veronica gone, the connection between all the operatives is severed. Without her alive to testify or be investigated, the conspiracy becomes nearly impossible to prove." My phone rang. Tom Riggs, Angela's private investigator. His voice shook. "Angela, I'm sorry. I have to come clean about something. Brandon Clark's people contacted me 3 days ago, offered me $50,000 to stop investigating and feed you false information. I refused. But last night, they broke into my house while my wife and kids were sleeping. Left a note. 'Stop or we kill everyone you love.' I'm done. I can't help anymore. I'm taking my family and disappearing. All my files, all my evidence, I'm destroying it. I'm sorry." He hung up. Angela looked at me, face pale. "We just lost our investigator. All the evidence he compiled, it's gone." I sat on the motel bed, head in my hands. Veronica was dead. The investigator was gone. Emma hated me. I was facing criminal charges. My money was stolen. There was no evidence, no allies, no hope. Angela sat beside me. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I dragged you into this. I should have just let it go." "You tried to save my life," I said. "You're the only person who did." We sat in silence, surrounded by the smell of cheap carpet cleaner and despair. At 11 o'clock, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Finally, I did. A man's voice, professional and authoritative. "Charles Morrison? This is Special Agent David Brennan with the FBI. I've been investigating Victoria Lang's organization for 2 years. I heard about your situation from some contacts in Portland PD. I think we can help each other. I need to meet with you immediately." Hope flared in my chest. "Where?" "Coffee shop on Morrison Street downtown. 30 minutes. Come alone." I looked at Angela. "The FBI wants to meet." We arrived at the coffee shop together, Despite the come alone instruction, Angela refused to let me go without backup. Agent Brennan sat at a corner table, wearing a dark suit and tie, FBI credentials displayed on the table. He looked legitimate, sounded legitimate. He explained, the Bureau had been tracking Victoria's organization for 2 years. They'd never had enough evidence for indictments. Victoria's death last night wasn't suicide. It was a hit, made to look like suicide. The organization was in cleanup mode, eliminating witnesses. You're in danger, Brennan said, and your daughter's wedding this afternoon is the final con. After today, they disappear forever. New identities, new lives, and you'll never find them. He proposed a plan. He'd wire me with a professional FBI recording device. I'd go to the wedding. I'd find a way to isolate Brandon or Stephen, confront them, get them to confess on tape. FBI agents would be stationed throughout the venue in plain clothes. The moment they had a recorded confession, they'd move in and arrest everyone. It was risky, incredibly risky. But it was literally the only option left. I agreed. Agent Brennan and his team spent the next hour fitting me with a nearly invisible wire, briefing me on what to say, how to provoke a confession without making Brandon suspicious. Angela insisted on being at the venue. Brennan reluctantly agreed, positioning her as a guest with an undercover agent escort. At 2:30, I arrived at the wedding venue, a beautiful estate outside the city with manicured gardens and a view of Mount Hood. The ceremony was set up outside, under white tents. Emma was in the bridal suite getting ready with her bridesmaids. Guests arrived in their formal attire, chattering happily. Brandon stood near the entrance in his tuxedo, greeting people. When he saw me, his expression hardened. He approached. "What are you doing here, Charles? There's a restraining order being filed Monday morning. You're not welcome." "We need to talk," I said quietly, privately, about Veronica. Brandon's expression flickered, just for a second. Surprise. Then it was gone, replaced by smooth confidence. "Fine. Follow me." He led me away from the crowd, toward a secluded garden area behind the main building. The wire under my shirt recorded every word, every footstep. This was it. The final confrontation. I'd get Brandon to confess. FBI would move in. This nightmare would end. We entered the garden, surrounded by rose bushes and stone benches, beautiful and isolated. Then I saw Stephen Wu waiting in the shadows, holding a gun. Brandon's smile widened, cold and cruel. "Did you really think the FBI would help you, Charles? Agent Brennan works for us. He's been on our payroll for 18 months. You just walked into your own execution." The world stopped. The wire I was wearing wasn't connected to the FBI. It was connected to nothing. Agent Brennan was fake. I'd been played again, right up to the very end. Stephen raised the gun, pointing it at my chest. Brandon circled me like a predator with cornered prey. "You should have just died quietly," Brandon said. "But you had to fight, had to investigate, made everything so much messier. Now we have to clean up loose ends. Starting with you, then Angela. Then we'll deal with Emma, if she asks too many questions." This was it. I was going to die in a garden while my daughter married my killer. Stephen pointed the gun at my chest. Brandon circled me, confident and calm. They thought they'd won. They thought I was helpless. But I'd spent my whole life investigating fraud. I'd learned a few things about cons. And the biggest thing I'd learned was this. When you're out of options, you bluff. I reached slowly into my jacket. Stephen tensed. "Easy." I pulled out my phone. "Before you kill me, you should know something. I've been live streaming this whole conversation to Angela. She's forwarding it to the real FBI. Everything you just said was recorded. It was a lie. My phone wasn't streaming anything. But I held it up, showing my camera app running, which looked like it could be recording. In the panic and adrenaline, it was convincing enough. Brandon's confidence wavered. "You're lying." "Am I? Go ahead, shoot me. But then you'll have a recorded confession and murder, and federal agents will have everything they need. Or you can let me walk away, cancel the wedding, and disappear. Your choice." Stephen didn't buy it. "He's bluffing. Kill him now." He stepped forward, gun raised. But before he could pull the trigger, a voice shouted from the garden entrance. "FBI, drop the weapon." Real FBI agents emerged from behind hedges, around corners, through doorways. At least 8 of them, wearing tactical gear, guns drawn. The lead agent was a woman in her 40s, with FBI clearly marked on her vest. "Stephen Wu, Brandon Kowalski, you're under arrest for fraud, racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder, and about 15 other charges. Stephen dropped his gun. Brandon's face went from confident to shocked to calculating in seconds, looking for an escape route. Agents surrounded them, weapons trained. The woman agent approached me. "Mr. Morrison, step away from them, please. You're safe now." I backed away, mind reeling. What was happening? How were real FBI here? Angela appeared from the group of agents, still wearing her disguise, but now also wearing an FBI vest over her clothes. She looked at me with an expression that was part apologetic, part relieved. "I'm sorry, Charles. I haven't been completely honest with you." "What?" I couldn't process this. The lead agent spoke. "Mr. Morrison, I'm Special Agent Victoria Reyes. We've been monitoring Victoria Lang's organization for 18 months. When Victoria was murdered yesterday, we knew the organization would make its final moves today. We've been watching this location since dawn. Every word spoken in this garden was recorded by our surveillance. We have everything we need." Angela stepped closer. "Charles, I am your daughter. That part is all true. Caroline Porter was my mother. You're my biological father. All of that is real. But I'm also FBI. Special Agent Angela Porter. I was assigned to infiltrate Victoria's organization 2 years ago as part of a long-term undercover operation. My legs felt weak. Your FBI? When I discovered the target was a man named Charles Morrison in Portland, I recognized the name from my mother's documents. I realized you were my biological father. I couldn't just stand by and watch you be killed. I requested the assignment. Everything I told you about wanting to save you was true. But I also had Bureau resources backing me the entire time." Agent Reyes continued. "The private investigator Tom Riggs, also FBI, undercover. His supposed withdrawal from the case was staged to make Brandon's crew think they were safe. The fake Agent Brennan you met this morning? That was one of Brandon's crew members, exactly as we predicted. We knew they'd try to set up a final trap, so we let them, while monitoring everything. Agents were handcuffing Brandon and Stephen. Brandon was shouting, demanding lawyers. Stephen was silent, his face emotionless. More agents moved through the wedding venue, arresting other crew members. Mac, the enforcer who I'd hit with the skillet, was pulled from a catering van in handcuffs. Other operatives posing as wedding guests were identified and detained. Agent Reyes explained that simultaneous raids were happening across 3 states at this exact moment, taking down Victoria's entire network. Emma appeared at the garden entrance, still in her wedding dress, makeup smeared from crying. She'd seen FBI agents arresting Brandon. She was hysterical. "Dad, what's happening? Why are they arresting Brandon?" I went to her, held her while she sobbed. As gently as I could, I explained. Brandon was a con artist. He'd been using her to steal from me. The wedding was fake. His love was fake. Everything was a lie designed to destroy our family. Emma collapsed in my arms, heartbroken but safe. Over the following weeks, the full scope of the conspiracy emerged. Victoria Lang's organization had been operating for 12 years. They'd stolen over $8 million from 17 different families. Brandon had been one of 6 operatives running romance scams. Stephen Wu specialized in home renovation access. The fake Agent Brennan was actually a corrupt former police officer, providing inside information. The FBI recovered most of my stolen money. Stephen had moved it to offshore accounts but hadn't completed laundering it yet. Of the $338,000 stolen, I got back $280,000. Not everything, but enough to rebuild my retirement. The criminal charges against me were dropped completely. The district attorney's office issued a formal apology. My record was cleared. Emma struggled. The man she'd planned to marry, who she'd loved completely, had been using her as a pawn. She went to therapy 3 times a week. Slowly, painfully, she began to heal. And Angela, my daughter. We began building a real relationship. She took a month of leave from the FBI to spend time with me. We were cautious at first, both healing from trauma, both learning how to be family. But there was genuine connection. I had a second daughter, one who'd saved my life by risking her career to protect me. Emma and Angela met. It was awkward. Emma was hurt that I had another daughter I'd never mentioned. But once she understood the full story, the Atlantic City marriage, the annulment, Caroline never telling me about the pregnancy, she softened. The 3 of us had dinner together. Then another dinner. Slowly, carefully, we became something like a family. 6 months later, I sat on my back porch on a Sunday morning, drinking coffee, watching the sunrise paint Mount Hood in shades of gold and pink. Angela sat beside me, also drinking coffee. Emma joined us, still hesitant but present. We talked about small things. Angela's new assignment with the Bureau, Emma's new job at a different nonprofit, my plans to volunteer at the local community center teaching fraud prevention classes to seniors. I looked at my two daughters and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not happiness exactly. The wounds were still too fresh, but peace. A sense that maybe, somehow, we'd survived the worst and could begin healing. I'd lost my wife years ago, nearly lost my daughter, nearly lost my life. But I'd survived. I'd fought back against people who thought I was just a weak old man, and I'd won. The wedding that almost killed me was now just a painful memory, evidence in an ongoing federal prosecution. Life continued. Family healed. Justice prevailed. I spent my whole life investigating other people's betrayals, I said quietly, watching the sun rise higher. Never thought I'd be living through one myself. But I learned something important. When the world tries to destroy you, you don't have to face it alone. Sometimes, the people you never knew you needed appear exactly when you need them most. Angela squeezed my hand. Emma smiled softly, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her in weeks. The sun rose higher, warm and bright. A new day, a new beginning. I'd learned that trust is precious and fragile. Evil exists, often wearing a charming smile and expensive suit. But goodness exists too, sometimes in unexpected forms. Family isn't just biology or shared history. It's who stands beside you when everything falls apart. I'd been betrayed by people I'd trusted, but I'd been saved by a daughter I never knew existed. Life is strange that way, full of surprises, both terrible and wonderful. Emma leaned her head on my shoulder. Angela held my hand. We sat together in comfortable silence, three people bound by trauma and love and the strange twists of fate that brought us together. I was 63 years old, retired, bruised but not broken, poorer than I'd been, but richer in ways that mattered more. And I was still here, still standing, still fighting. That was enough. So let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like someone close to you was hiding something, but you couldn't quite put your finger on what it was? That gut feeling that saved my life almost came too late. Trust your instincts, but more importantly, trust the people who stand by you when everything falls apart. If this story moved you, reminded you of the importance of family and truth, I'd be grateful if you'd hit that like button below. Subscribe to hear more stories about survival, betrayal, and the strength we find in our darkest moments. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And leave a comment telling me, what would you have done in my situation? Your thoughts and stories matter. Thank you for listening to my story. It wasn't easy to relive, but if it helps even one person recognize danger or value the family they have, it was worth telling. Take care of each other out there. Life is precious, and the people who truly love you are even more so. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and remember, even when all seems lost, there's always a way forward.